We are in a series that we're calling How to Experience God's Blessing in Your Life. It's a study of the Beatitudes. And today we come to Matthew chapter 5, verse 6. You may have heard Bruce Springsteen sing "Everybody's Got a Hungry Heart," except that's not how he sang it. He sang "Everybody's Got a Hungry Heart" or something like that. But I think that song expresses a truth that most of us are hungry for something. There is a desire within us for something. It might be a raise, it might be a promotion, it might be to be able to retire, it might be recognition, it might be a relationship, it might be love, but within each human heart, there's a hunger for something. And maybe you have said this, or you've heard somebody say this: I want this so bad I can taste it. If you've ever heard a huddle of a basketball coach or a football coach ask their teams, are you hungry for this? How much do you want this? Because hunger and thirst are quite possibly the strongest human drives. They are intense. If you don't believe that, go to a buffet Sunday after all the churches get out. There is no kindness. There's no you go first. Everybody's hungry for something. And hunger and thirst get stronger as time goes on. And the only way you can satisfy them is with food or drink. You can't really distract yourself when you're hungry. You can't distract yourself when you're thirsty. You may sleep with a cup of water by your bedside, because if you wake up thirsty, you're not wanting to get out of bed and go to get some water. So you've got something right there. And when Jesus is telling us how to experience God's blessing, remember, he's saying you are blessed if you are these things. They bring the blessing of God with them. He takes these strong human drives, and in Matthew 5:6 says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they'll be filled." I've heard preachers preach on this passage, and they do it with a sense of condemnation and judgment. Are you hungry and thirsty for righteousness? If you are, you're going to memorize a chapter of the Bible every day, and you're going to spend an hour reading the Bible, and you're going to spend an hour praying every day, and you're going to go to church 6 times a week if you're really hungering and thirsting. And all of a sudden, hungering and thirsting becomes fulfilling obligations rather than the natural desire of our hearts. Remember what we said before, these are the be attitudes, not the do attitudes. And so hungering and thirsting is not something you do. Hungering and thirsting is something that we are. And the words that Jesus uses here are just the natural words for hunger and thirst. Now, those of you who've known me very long at all know that you don't have to motivate me too much to get me to eat. My kids have never had to have a family conference and say, "Dad, you must eat." Now, there may come a time, but if it ever comes to that, you'll know he's going out. Jesus is calling him home because he's stopped eating. And they don't have to make me drink when I'm thirsty. They don't say, "It's your duty to do these things." No. We were at lunch several years ago. We were at lunch, and all of a sudden Victoria just burst out laughing. And I said, "What's so funny?" She said, "We're here sitting at lunch talking about what we're going to eat for supper." I said, "Yep, welcome to the Wilson household." For a while I traveled in college with a music group representing our school, and we would have to take 2 or 3 different vehicles. And one of my friends says, "I am riding with Wilson because I know we will stop to eat." So that I guess that'll be on my tombstone. At least he stopped to eat. But the question in my home is never, are we going to eat? It's what are we going to eat? When are we going to eat? Because hunger and thirst are those natural drives. And you don't work them up. If you're not hungry, you can't make yourself hungry. It's something that is a natural part of us. And Jesus did not say, blessed are you who try to work up some kind of hunger and thirst. He said, blessed are you when you hunger and thirst. So what we're going to do is take this apart. What's it mean to hunger and thirst? What's righteousness? What does it mean to be fulfilled? How does this work? What does it mean to hunger and thirst? Now, we've talked about this before, that the New Testament was written in the common Greek language of the day. Everybody in the then known world had Greek as either their first or second language. That was the language of business and commerce. So everybody knew Greek. And so when Jesus gave us the New Testament, or the Lord gave us the New Testament, he gave it to us in the common Greek. And so we study those words and how they were used in the first century, and it gives us insight into what Jesus is saying when he uses them in a spiritual context. And the words hungering and thirsting have with it the idea of a constant, continual craving. This is an intense desire. It's, I feel the hunger pains. I feel like I'm dying of thirst. It's that strong, intense need. And what Jesus is saying is, just as you get hungry and thirsty for food and drink in your physical body, so your inner person needs spiritual food and drink, and you need to hunger and thirst for those. People who are dead spiritually have no spiritual appetite. And maybe one of the best indicators of growth in your spiritual life is, I want more of God. Maybe at the beginning of last year when we started and we went through how to pray and how to read the Bible and study the Bible, you began doing that on a more regular basis. And you've discovered the more time I spend in the scriptures, the more I learn about God and the more I want to know. The more I pray, the closer I feel to God, and so I want to pray more. It's that continual craving for the presence of God. And what's interesting is the grammar here indicates a hunger and thirst for the entire thing. It's not like I want a piece of bread, I want the whole loaf. It's not like I want a sip of water, I want a gallon jug. I want the entire thing. When I thought about that, some of you are too young to remember this, but y'all remember the old Alka-Seltzer commercial? I can't believe I ate the whole thing. Well, that concept is what he's talking about. I'm hungering and thirsting for everything I can get of God. I'm not interested in just, an hour a week at church. I want everything I can get from him. I want to know him as best as I can. I want to live for him the best I can. But what's interesting is that the way the words are structured indicate that as you are filled, your hungering and thirsting increases. It's like the more you know of God, the more you want to know. And as you are satisfied in his presence, the hunger and thirst increases for even more of him. The more you know about God, the more you want to know about God. So what is righteousness? In a core statement, righteousness means first to be right with God. And then in our own personal relationships, it means to be and do what is right in our relationship with other people. So you can get all fancy about talking about different kinds of righteousness, but at its core, righteousness is a right relationship with God and a right relationship with people. And the right relationship with God obviously comes first. What I want us to understand is that hungering and thirsting is not about doing more religious stuff. Well, if I'm going to hunger and thirst after God, that must mean I have to add 6 chapters a day to my Bible reading and 30 minutes a day to my prayer. No, it's not about doing more religious stuff. It's about being hungry for a relationship with God. It's about a desire to know God. And Jesus is saying, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for God, for a deepening personal relationship with Him. Now, will you read the Bible? Yes. Will you pray? Yes. But not as a religious duty, not as a thing to check off, well, I did that today, but rather as a means of getting to know Him better. If you hunger and thirst for righteousness, will you come to church? Yes. But not as a religious obligation, but rather as a way to get around other people who are hungry and thirsty for God, and together, as we meet together, join in that search for Him. So at its core, this beatitude is saying you are blessed if you have a desire to know God. And as that desire grows and continues in your life. What's it mean to be filled? The Greek word pictures a gorgeous pasture with plenty of great grass and a herd of cattle just very contentedly eating until they've had enough. The idea is to be completely satisfied, but yet want more. I don't know if that's a paradox or what it is, but to be filled is to be completely satisfied, but still want more. It's what we said a minute ago. The hungering and thirsting increases in the very act of being satisfied. Which is kind of weird, because on the one hand you're saying, preacher, this hungering and thirsting is to be something that is continuous and constant. But then if you're filled, how do you keep hungering and thirsting? And I think I know the answer. If you follow Donna or you follow some of our family members on Facebook, you have seen at times the spread that she puts out on holiday meals. Oh my. And some of our kids' friends that have been by on some of those days, they was like, oh, I remember that, because her love language is cooking, which works out great because my love language is eating, so that worked out well. The secret to 50 years. But I heard myself say at Christmas this year, it is a crime to be filled after one plate of food with this much good food. In my day, I could put away, 2 or 3 plates of food. Now, one plate, I'm done. Bill Cosby used to say there's always room for Jell-O. Now, I ain't got room for Jell-O. I'm done with one plate. I'm filled. I'm satisfied. But I still want more. There is still a part of me that says, oh, if I could just do one more piece of turkey, one more serving of mashed potatoes, I want more. But I'm full. That's the closest thing that I can come up with to explain what Jesus is saying here. As you hunger and thirst for God, as you desire to know Him, you will be full. But there will still be something in you that says, Lord, I want to know you more. I want to get closer to you. I want you to talk to me more clearly. I want to talk to you more consistently. The prophet said, you'll find God when you seek for Him with all your heart. That's hungering and thirsting, to be filled. But don't miss, blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, because they will be filled. God is the one that does the filling. In response to our desire, he fills us. It's not something we work up. It's not checking things off of a religious to-do list. It is being in connection with him, and he fills you in relationship to your hunger. But I was digging into this word, shall be filled. I found out that it could also mean to be controlled by. Oh, that's interesting. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, because they will be controlled by God. We human beings are in great part controlled by our appetites, controlled by our desires. You know, an addict is controlled by their desires. You're controlled by, I got to get food, I got to get drink, I got to get to sleep. You know, our human desires control us. The believer who is hungering and thirsting after righteousness is controlled by God. What a way to live, under the control of a loving, faithful God. And so I got to this point in the study and it was like, okay, so what's the so what? You know, because this is kind of a nebulous thing. And that's why we preachers usually say, here's how to be hungering and thirsting after righteousness. Number 1, pray 15 minutes a day. Number 2, read 5 chapters in Psalms and 1 in Proverbs every day. Number 3, come to church every time we have church, you know. And we give you this list of things to do to make yourself hungry. It doesn't work that way. It does work that way that if you approach the Word of God of, Lord, speak to me. I want to know more about you today. Open up your Word and show me something. I heard a preacher I was listening as I was getting ready this morning, and he said he had gotten through the hardest times of his life because of the book of Psalms. You know, so just whatever you're reading in the scripture, Lord, I'm reading this not to check off a list. I'm not reading this so I can say, I read through the Bible in 2025. I'm doing this, Lord, because I want to know you better. I'm doing this because I want some insight into you. I'm doing this because I want to know how to please you. I'm doing this so I want to know how to be a good representative of you. Lord, please open your word. Yes, Lord, I'm praying. But not just because I have a bunch of stuff I need you to do for me. I'm praying because I want connection with you. Remember we talked Christmas, I guess, about God walking with Adam and Eve in the cool of the day. Lord, that's what I want. I want that. I want to hang out with you. I want to just talk to you through my day because I want that connection with you. And what I came up to with where to start is ask God to increase your appetite. Because he'll do that. Because he wants to fill us with himself. And so it is appropriate about any spiritual discipline you're trying to build into your life. It is appropriate to say, God, would you please give me the desire for this? Because it's not natural. You know, you don't have to give people the desire to sleep. You need the desire to wake up sometimes, but you know, you don't need the desire to go take a nap. But hungering and thirsting for righteousness, that's a little contrary to our human nature. And so we say, Lord, please awaken in me that hunger and thirst for more of you. And he'll do it. And as you build that relationship with him, as you hunger and thirst for more of God, if your goal every day is, Lord, I want to learn something more about you today. I want to get closer to you today. And yes, it'll ebb and flow, just like your physical hunger and thirst does. But there'll be a consistency of, Lord, I want more of you. I want to know you better. I want to learn your ways. I want to know how you work. I want to know how I need to live in this life. So would you please increase my appetite for you. And he promises you'll be filled. You'll find that the time you spend with him is your favorite time of the day. You'll find that through the day, you have these little interchanges with him that just enrich your life. And that you'll be controlled by him instead of outside pressures. Lord, increase our appetite for you. Father, I pray that for us. I know this is hard to kind of get our minds around. But Lord, I pray that you would increase our spiritual appetites. Give us the desire to know you more. We'll never know all of you, but we'd like to know as much of you as we can. We'll never know all of your ways, but we want to learn more of them. And so, Lord, increase that appetite in us, and then allow us to be filled with the fullness of God. Now may the Lord bless you, keep you, make his face to shine on you, and give you his peace, now and evermore. Amen. God bless you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in.